This is CBC Here and Now.
Well, it's the latest anyone can remember, but Marble Mountain is finally open to skiers and snowboarders.
Never have I experienced a March opening at Marble Mountain.
We'll get a closer look at the hill, and I'll tell you what it was like today.
The snow squall potential continues for parts of the West Coast as we head into the weekend, but then things will start to quiet down.
12 steps from wall to door.
Taking isolation in stride.
Mark Nichols is literally lapping up mandatory quarantine in preparation for the Briar. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. Those stories in just a few minutes, but we'll start with a COVID update.
We've reached a milestone today. Our total number of COVID cases has now passed the 1,000 mark.
In terms of daily cases, we remain in the single digits today with 5 new cases. Now, one of those cases is in the western region and is linked to international travel. The other 4 are in eastern, all tied to known cases. One of those is a healthcare worker in Trepassey. Now, the community clinic there is called Nurse Abernathy. It was closed today after a worker tested positive. That person is now isolating at home. Appointments will be rebooked, and anyone needing immediate care should contact clinics in Ferryland or St. Mary's. So that makes for a total of 121 active COVID-19 cases in the province. And a reminder, today through Saturday, anyone 70 years of age or older with a surname starting with the letter M through Z can now register for their vaccine.
The minister responsible for the status of women says despite the province's heightened alert levels, organizations are ready and waiting to help women in violent situations get to safety. Lisa Dempster says there's been an increase in calls to the province's domestic violence helpline. She says the pandemic has led to increased isolation. And while individuals are encouraged to stay home and stick to their family bubbles, that doesn't mean women should stay in unsafe circumstances.
What we're seeing is prior to the pandemic, we would get various calls to the line. Could be around financial abuse, different types, but right now, and we know the pandemic has been really difficult for many people, and it's not impacted all of us equally. We know that some of the calls coming in are women are more focused on physical violence.
The domestic violence hotline automatically connects callers to organizations in their part of the province. Anyone looking for help can call or text the number. It's 1-888-709-7090. We've brought that number up on the screen. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Has your election ballot arrived? People across the province are receiving their voting kits after Elections NL shifted all voting in the election to mail-in only. But mail isn't the only way those ballots are being delivered. The head of Elections NL has been dropping off ballots to some candidates. PC leader Chess Crosby and Liberal Siobhan Cody say they both had their ballots hand-delivered.
He reached out to me and just said that, the ballot's processed, I can drop it by on the way home, or I can put it in the mail. And I have a mailbox on the side of my house, and that's what occurred.
I did receive it by hand, so I have to confess I may have gotten special treatment.
But it's not just ballots. Bruce Chalk has also been personally calling people who've been wondering why they haven't received a ballot.
Well, I might have dropped it off through a mail slot, but on my way home, but that's not unusual. An election official is allowed to drop off a kit, so I don't see anything wrong with that. It's, if it was on my way, I can drop it off if I happen to process it.
Now, Carl Wells, who used to do the weather on Here and Now, is also a well-known food critic. He says that he didn't receive, or he had put in a tweet about not getting the ballot, and afterwards he got a call from Chalk. Chalk says that was just one of hundreds of calls he's made to voters, and that was entirely proper.
Another pretty lovely day out there today for parts of the province. We've got a large area of low pressure that has been our weather maker for the past couple of days, prompting some snow squalls on the west coast as well as the south coast is where we're seeing those. That will generally continue as we head through the overnight tonight. Those snow squall warnings in place from Port aux Basques through to the parts of the northern peninsula, through to Green Bay, White Bay, and including the interior. We're looking at those snow squalls through most of the night tonight and then even into the first half of tomorrow. And then we've got a winter storm warning along the strait there. So we're looking at somewhere by the time we get into Friday evening, we're looking at the flurry activity generally tapering off, which is good news. But on the west coast, about 5 to 10 centimeters, but in those squalls, you'll likely see much higher, and certainly in those higher elevations. But I will get into those details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, it was hard to see under all of the masks, but skiers and snowboarders on the West Coast were wearing big smiles today. Marble Mountain opened after months of weather and COVID-19 delays, but the opening comes with a big warning to people living in Alert Level 5 on the Avalon. Please stay away. Here and Now's Colleen Connors explains.
I'm so excited. I barely slept last night.
Wells has been waiting for this day for months and says hundreds lined up for the first chairlift ride at 9 a.m. The hill had enough snow that it could have opened weeks ago, but COVID restrictions changed that. And before that, there wasn't enough snow, delaying the opening for months. But finally, on a stormy March morning, riders say conditions are unreal.
I had a few runs this morning, and they're up there as some of the best runs of my life.
So much fresh snow, it's unbelievable. There's got to be 15 to 20 centimeters of fresh snow all over the hill right now.
Yeah, it feels way steep in some places for sure. It's the best, and also it is busy for a Thursday morning, but I mean, being some of the first people of the first day of the season to cut through the snow is incredible. I don't know if there'll be another day like this all year.
And no one seems to mind the new restrictions. The lodge is closed to the public except the bathrooms. Skiers have to bring their skis from their vehicles instead of the locker rooms and lug their gear to the lift. Masks are mandatory in lineups and on the chairlift. It's all West Coasters here, and staff are not selling passes to anyone outside.
So we do have the ability and have been turning away people from the Avalon under Alert Level 5 restrictions up to this point. So we can really only ask people to follow public health orders and not put our season at jeopardy. Don't be the reason that we might lose our season.
Riders agree.
It feels safe. Yeah, I'm happy that the hill is open, and I'm happy that the situation is the way that it is. And I think the rest of the West Coast is happy with that situation.
So even though it's already March, day lift pass sales are strong. And a lot of people who got a refund on their season pass are now buying it back, even if 2021 is a much shorter skiing season. Well, the big questions now are, will the Hills season be extended? Will skiers and snowboarders get a couple extra weeks at the other end to make up for this late start? Wells says that all those questions will be answered and there is a plan in the works. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Steady Brook.
The province's finance minister says steps are being taken to ensure that Newfoundland and Labrador's government has the money it needs to continue operating at the end of the month. Interim supply bills passed last year gave government money for payroll and government services past March 31st. So normally, an interim supply bill is used to extend funding, and that would need to be voted on by MHAs in the House of Assembly. It was expected that there would be a new government in place well before the end of this month, but now that's unlikely.
Under the Financial Administration Acts, there are provisions for when the House of Assembly is not in session or dissolved, that you can have what's called a special warrant. It's under a certain section, I think it's 28 of the Financial Administration Act, that basically permits the continuation of government. It doesn't allow for any what I'm going to call new spending. It's a continuation of things that have been already agreed to. And as you know, we just had a budget passed by the House of Assembly unanimously. Everyone voted for it back in the fall.
Finance Minister Siobhan Cody says the special warrant will be a cabinet decision, but it's not clear how long funding will be extended.
Well, the Act does give us up to 4 months. We haven't determined at this point, at this point, will we need, 2, 3, 4 months? That's under active discussion, but we'll make that determination as we move forward in the next number of weeks. But the Act does give you up to 4 months to be able to have that interim supply.
Well, 7 highly paid contractors working on the Muskrat Falls project are fighting a request by CBC News to have their names and pay revealed through the accessed information process. Now, that's despite the fact Nalcor believes the information should be released and that legislative changes require it. Terry Roberts has been looking into this issue and joins us now with the details. So, Terry, tell us where this all started.
Yeah, I guess, Carolyn, my interest, I guess you could say, was peaked late last year when we learned that Nalcor CEO Stan Marshall here at Nalcor headquarters, that he was given a bonus of $315,000 in 2019. And of course, we're in the middle of a financial crisis in this province, so that led to a lot of public outcry here. But it also got me to wondering, since the project is so much delayed and so much over budget, what are we paying for the project team that's running the Muskrat Falls construction project? There's about 21 members on that team. They're what you call embedded contractors. They're contractors for hire, that kind of thing. I filed an access to information request with Nalcor for the names, first of all, and secondly, the pay information for 2019 for those 21 private contractors. Now, in recent days, I've received a response to that. I guess you could say it's been a partial response. I received the information for 14 of those 21 contractors, and the numbers are interesting. The average pay for those 14 was about $300,000 in 2019, and some of them were up around $400,000. But where it got interesting, tangly, I guess you could say, is that Nalcor withheld the information of 7 of those private contractors. That's because they filed a complaint with the Information and Privacy Commissioner trying to block the release of the information. Now, the Information and Privacy Commissioner's office is now investigating to try and determine whether the release of this information will cause financial and privacy harm to these contractors. But right now we know that it could be as late as May before we get any answers on this.
Muskrat Falls is a public project using public money. Is there a possibility these 7 contractors will get their way and that we won't get this information?
Well, right now we can't say definitively how this all might unfold, but I would be very surprised if that were the case. There's several reasons for that. Firstly, Nalcor wants this information released. They told me they want to release this information. And secondly, there was a change to the Energy Corporation Act about 3 years ago, which allows this kind of information to be made public. And third, the courts in this province have already dealt with cases similar to this, and they've come down on the side of full disclosure. So unless someone's safety might be harmed in all this, I can't see a scenario where this kind of information will be withheld long term. And now you might be wondering, just who are these 7 holdouts? Now, I got a pretty good idea who they are, but I'm going to focus on one person. His name is Paul Harrington. He's the longtime project leader on the Muskrat Falls project. We all came to know him, I guess, during the Muskrat Falls inquiry a few years ago. Now, he's been very aggressive in the past of trying to keep his compensation matters secret. I guess the argument is that people like him, they're independent contractors, they compete with other contractors for work, so they don't want to disclose this kind of information. But we know that from past Freedom of Information requests that Paul Harrington, he's been paid, up to $2,000 a day rate of nearly $2,000, up to 2017. And we have records in 2016, for example, that showed he was billing Nalcor as much as $75,000 a month for his services. What I want to know is his current compensation, because, if the project had been on schedule, Paul Harrington and others on this team, they would have been moved on long ago. But Harrington and others, they're doing whatever they can to prevent us from finding out this information. Carolyn?
Thanks so much, Terry. That's Here and Now's Terry Roberts reporting.
Well, from the team at Nalcor to the team on the curling rink, Team Guju is gearing up for the Brier. And that means more than just ice time.
Yes, the Brier starts tomorrow and teams are isolating in Calgary hotels.
Athletes are restricted to their rooms until they get 3 negative COVID tests, and even then, they're only allowed to the rink and back.
Yes, here now's Katie Breen asked Mark Nichols about his dizzying approach to staying active while isolating for what could be a pretty long time.
Going for a walk in the hotel room.
Yesterday was a long day and I had to fill some time.
Let's see how this goes.
Someone I follow on Instagram, a fitness individual, he did a quarantine a number of months ago, and he used to do 10,000 steps a day in a smaller space than what I have here. So I was like, if he can do it, I can do it. And Brad had sent me a message, said he did 2K the night before. So I just kind of got into it, listened to a podcast, and next thing you know, an hour was gone by. 12 to 13 steps, depending on where I make my turn. So it's that's a lot of laps.
So you've got the Briar coming up now tomorrow. How are you feeling about it?
Excited. It's been a long year. This team hasn't played together in pretty much a year. The last game the four of us played together was the Briar final last year.
And Guju is good again.
So I'm really excited. You know, a little anxious and nervous about kind of what's going to happen because, you know, our preparation has been quite different leading up to it, but every team is kind of in the same boat or a different type of boat, but it's certainly not the same as what it used to be going into a Briar. So get on the ice and practice, see how it feels, and then kind of make adjustments from there.
How's the isolation playing into your mental game?
It's, you know, it's tough at times. We've worked very hard on our on the mental side of our game for many years. So we've been preparing for this for a long time, you know, whether it's visualization or meditation or anything like that. This team has done a lot to kind of get to this place. We're ready for it.
So you've got the Briar coming up, but that's just the first of a few different events. What's your schedule like, and how long could you be staying in this hotel?
After the Briars, the mixed doubles. So we're all staying here for that. If we're lucky enough to win the Briar, then the World Championships are after that. And then 2 Grand Slam events after the World Championships. So, you know, depending on how well the Briar goes, it could be 5 events. And if we don't win the Briar, then it's 4 events. But it could be 55 days in this hotel and out on day 56 if, you know, everything goes as planned.
Think you'll get sick of walking bedroom laps and all that time?
You know, listen, if that's the worst thing that happens here is I got to walk 5K back and forth and we're still winning, then that's a good thing to do. If it distracts me from what's going on around, then that's a good thing.
What's the secret to living a good life after 100 years?
I'll let you know next year.
Marking a major milestone with a pandemic-friendly party.
A retirement home in central Newfoundland goes all out to celebrate a 100th birthday. That's coming up a little later on Here and Now.
weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley is here with a look at the weather. And Ashley, we saw earlier in the show that there are a lot of happy people on the West Coast in Corner Brook hitting the ski slopes.
Yep, weather certainly cooperated with all that fresh powder. People who have to clear it, not so much. Seeing lots of not happy people on the West Coast for sure to have to clear all that snow that fell overnight, and that is thanks to those snow squalls. But temperatures were beautiful today. Again, feeling very winter-like into the minus single digits. Let's take a look at those across the province. -3 for Corner Brook, and then as you head towards the eastern portion of the island, we're looking at 1 and 2 degrees for parts of for Marystown and St. John's rather. And then temperatures into the minus single digits again for Labrador, and then +1 for Nain, Hopedale, and Happy Valley Goose Bay. That happened a little bit earlier today. Those temperatures have since dropped into the afternoon into those minus single digits, and then hovering around the 0 degree mark in St. John's, and dropped a few degrees for the West Coast as well. Now we can thank an area of low pressure for all of these snow squalls on the West Coast. You can see them there. That will generally continue as we head through the overnight and at least the first half of tomorrow. So snow squall warning is in place for most of the West Coast, including a winter storm warning along the strait there. You're looking at some pretty gusty winds along with these. So if you are traveling at all and you do get into some of these squalls, those visibilities will reduce dramatically as you head into them. So here's a look at the future tracker. You can see that snow squall potential will continue overnight tonight and along the south coast as well. Pretty much from the Burin Peninsula eastward, we're out of that at this point, but still looking at partly to mostly cloudy skies as we head through the overnight tonight. Chance of a few flurries, otherwise shouldn't accumulate to much, trace to 5 centimeters at the most. But again, in those squalls, locally higher amounts, upwards of maybe 15, even 20 centimeters is certainly possible in those higher elevations. And then finally going to see some of that snow taper off for southeastern portions of Labrador, but continue for northern and the western portion of the island, or of the Big Land as well. The other thing to note is blowing snow will continue for northern Labrador with gusts upwards of about 60, even 70 kilometers per hour, and it'll be breezy as well for the island. Temperatures a little bit warmer as you head east into the -1 degree range, and then cooler towards the west coast, hovering in and around where we're sitting right now, and should do so as we head through the overnight. So into tomorrow, the risk of snow squalls will generally end for the southern half of the island as we head into the afternoon. And the snow squalls on the west coast will be less numerous for sure into the afternoon as well. So finally going to see some relief from that. Otherwise, we're looking at some sunny breaks and a few flurries in the mix as well. Into eastern portions, temperatures are going to be well above 0 tomorrow. So we could even see some rain in the mix, but after that, things will start to settle down. So that's certainly good news. Here's the temperatures for tomorrow. Like I said, 3 degrees in St. John's, 0 towards central, and then those minus single digits for the west coast of the island, and then similar temperatures up through Labrador as well, looking at about 0 for Happy Valley Goose Bay with flurries and the chance of some sunshine. So as we head into the weekend, things start to quiet down, but I will give you those details coming up.
Art, music, fashion, athletes, the pioneers, the engineers, they all represent Black history.
Reflecting on a pandemic-hindered Black History Month, students at MUN create a video to showcase Black culture in St. John's. Well, since February was Black History Month, Memorial University's Black Students Association put together a video to share the experiences of Black students in this province. In the video, students talk about what Black History Month means to them and what it's like being part of the Black culture in St. John's. Joining me now is one of the students who produced the video, John Moemba. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you.
So, John, most of Black History Month fell under a full pandemic lockdown in St. John's. What kind of challenges did that present in terms of connecting people?
Well, as you said, the pandemic is a time in which we couldn't really go out into the community and celebrate as much as we usually do. We tried to, come together a lot and celebrate, art, culture, that kind of thing, and just bring the community together every time around February, just to reflect on what's happened this year, especially like in 2020. It was pretty tough for the Black community globally, as well as in our community here as well, because of what's going on in North America with the civil rights and the shootings we see. But it's been pretty difficult, but we have managed to overcome it through making videos and whatnot.
Yeah, tell us more about the video that you created. Why did you want to put that out there?
At MUN, there's obviously quite a decent amount of people that are Black and who identify as Black, and I feel sometimes at MUN we don't have a place to kind of voice our opinions and kind of tell people that, hey, we're a community at MUN, and we're not just a tumultuous group of people that kind of just exist on themselves. We're a community, and we have culture, we have kind of an identity, and we wanted to kind of showcase that. We kind of want to give like a rudimentary understanding of what it is to be Black in St. John's versus Black somewhere else, because I think that we can also kind of, I don't want to trivialize it too much, but I think people associate Blackness in North America with the United States, but in Canada it's a totally different thing, and especially when you come down to St. John's or in Newfoundland as a province, it's a totally different thing. So we kind of wanted to bring to light what that's like in our community at MUN specifically.
We certainly are different when compared to many other provinces. Just 0.5% of the population in this province is Black. So what kind of challenges does that present when it comes to getting the message out and getting people interested in Black history and Black culture?
I feel like sometimes Black History Month, through my experience, has been kind of boiled down to two themes, which is usually, the civil rights movement and the transatlantic slave trade. But, Black history is more than that. And we wanted to show that because, this art, music, fashion, athletes, the pioneers, the engineers, they all represent Black history. But I feel like sometimes when we focus on these few themes, which are very important, might I add, it kind of takes away from the entirety of Black culture and Black history and Black History Month. And I feel like we wanted to change that up after the things that happened this year. We wanted to just, give it a better understanding and better representation of what it truly is to be Black.
And you touched on this earlier, and just then, so much has happened. Many people talk about 2020 as the year of racial reckoning. There was the death of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter protests, and we've seen how racialized communities have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic as well. So when you reflect on 2020, how do you feel?
I personally feel many ways. It's just kind of hard to put into one explanation, but I would say that personally it's been really tough on us to see that. I mean, the events that happened, devastating to see, especially on camera, and to see how bad it really is, was for me saddening that it's still happening in our day and age. But for some it was a rude awakening. Some people didn't believe it until the events had transpired, and it's unfortunate that we've had to let it get this far before people realize what's going on. But it has kind of brought some positive aspects, as now people will listen. I think that people will have conversations and understand that this isn't just something that Black people or people of color just talk about or exaggerate per se. This is a legitimate issue, and it needs to be dealt with. And if not by our generation, then these things will keep on happening.
Well, John Moemba, I really appreciate your thoughtful perspective on all of this. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
All right, thank you.
CBC News has learned that Air Canada is ready to refund passengers whose travel plans were cancelled during the pandemic. But it's all linked to a potential bailout from the federal government. Air Canada says there's no agreement on financial aid, but talks are ongoing. Ottawa has made reimbursement of travelers a key demand in exchange for financial relief for airlines. It's also asking carriers to maintain regional routes and protect jobs. Air Canada is one of the biggest companies in the country and has taken a big financial hit from COVID-19 restrictions. Well, travel is only going to pick up after people are vaccinated, and Canada has 3 vaccines approved right now. Today, there was a bit more of a timeline for a decision on a 4th, one from Johnson & Johnson.
The review of the Johnson & Johnson submission is going very well. It's progressing, and we're expecting to have that completed and a decision in the next few days. I would say within the next 7 days or so.
The Johnson & Johnson vaccine only needs 1 dose. The U.S. approved the vaccine on the weekend. A global trial found it was 66% effective at keeping away moderate to severe illness and 85% effective at preventing the most serious effects of the coronavirus. Canada has ordered 10 million doses of the vaccine with an option for 30 million more. Well, don't you just hate it when your workday is spent staring into a camera? I know a little something about that, but for so many, Zoom has become part of everyday life. But it's also become tiring. Thomas Dagla has more on why.
In this work-from-home era, this is one defining phrase.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, Thomas. Nice to meet you. You can hear me okay?
Physiotherapist Matthew Lang is seeing the consequences of a full year spent by so many video conferencing all day.
Neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, that then affect people farther and throughout their entire day because they're stuck and they're not moving.
Meeting colleagues over Zoom felt so novel a year ago when we first met Peter Flashner.
I think working from home will be a lot more of an accepted feature.
But since then,
novelty is worn off. I'd say that we've become, quite adept at this.
Normalized in movies.
Is that a glass of wine?
Yes, yeah, it is.
By world leaders, even royalty.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
Bye.
Video chat has become a fact of life for so many, and with it, that so-called Zoom fatigue. Researchers at Stanford blame the close-up eye contact, a reduction in mobility from staying in the same spot, plus the mental strain of watching for visual cues, not to mention constantly seeing yourself in real time.
This is a huge transformation to the way we normally talk. It's like walking around with a mirror hanging in front of us.
Researchers recommend shrinking the video chat window so it doesn't take up the entire screen and turning off self-view mode as often as possible.
Even as more people get vaccinated, there's a feeling virtual meetings are here to stay, blended perhaps with in-person attendance.
If we could do hybrid, that would be just great if that means more people are able to participate.
Did you hear him?
In the meantime, yes, some are still getting the hang of it.
Oh, I can see Thomas in the little gallery, but not on the big screen.
Oh, sorry, I was muted.
Thomas Dagler, CBC News, Toronto.
The Lake Melville Seal Hunt, an annual Labrador spring tradition. Sunday at noon and Monday at 7.
Peter, so much about the pandemic just keeps changing, including the plan for vaccinations.
Yeah, so we wanted to answer a few of your questions.
Yes, we've been getting a lot of questions from viewers about the vaccine, so I'm going to throw a few of those at you now. Some people are asking, will the vaccine stop me from getting the virus or spreading it? And will I still have to wear a mask and social distance after I'm vaccinated?
Okay, so let me break it down. So will it stop you from getting the virus? What we know is that from the clinical trials, we know it's going to stop you from getting sick. When they did those trials, they looked at whether or not people were getting symptoms and then testing positive. So that's when you hear the numbers like it's 95% effective or 60% effective, that's what they're talking about. So even AstraZeneca's vaccine, it's one of the new ones, it has a lower efficacy, that's where you're looking at about 65%, but it was 100% effective at preventing people from ending up in the hospital or dying from COVID. And that's what people are most concerned about with this virus, obviously. So the next question, will it prevent you from spreading the virus? And the answer is they're not quite sure yet. It is possible that what the vaccine does is it prevents you from getting sick, but you're still infected, so there is still a chance that you could spread the disease to someone who's unvaccinated. There is some promising early research that shows that it makes it less likely for you to spread the disease, but right now we need to do more before, or we need to know more rather, before Dr. Fitzgerald is willing to drop things like the mask requirement or physical distancing or the quarantine for people coming into the province. So right now having the vaccine doesn't give you any special privileges, you still have to follow all the health rules.
Okay, so Peter, now that the province will be giving more people one dose and delaying the second dose, how will that change the vaccination plan and schedule?
So it changes how quickly people are going to get at least the first vaccine. So instead of 40,000 people getting vaccinated this month, it's now going to be 80,000 people who are all just getting their first dose. So this is because they're finding evidence that one dose is giving good protection, at least for the short term. For the long term, they still want that second shot, but now they're going to do it 3 months later instead of just 1 month later. That's going to free up more vaccines now, and the second shot will come when we're expecting bigger supplies. So I'll give you an example of what the effect has been from just one shot. There was a long-term care home in Quebec that had its residents vaccinated with one shot. They found that the disease was able to get into the home, but most had no symptoms. None needed to go to the hospital. And if that's your big concern, then what health officials have basically said is it's better to make sure more people get that single shot to get them that protection. And it's going to mean that rather than people being vaccinated by September, the health minister says it's now going to be the summer by the time everyone has their first shot, and that could lead to a much more normal summer.
Potentially the case where we could see certainly a new summer this year where a significant proportion, if not all of those people who need and want access to a vaccine would have been able to have it by the summer of this year instead of the fall as we had thought. And imagine what that would do to our day-to-day lives as we get that level of protection. Again, it's a stressful period, but there's such optimism here, it really is worth emphasizing that.
Okay, so Peter, you dug into the numbers about cases in schools, but people are also wondering about daycares. How many cases have been tied to daycares?
Yeah, so I put in a request and got some information, but not a lot. So let's talk a little bit about what Eastern Health was able to tell me. So they have said that there are 18 confirmed cases. That includes staff or kids, and that's in both regulated daycare spaces as well as family day homes, and this is all in the metro area. So let's look at how many specific areas were affected, how many homes had or daycare centers, and there were 5 centers, but health officials won't say which centers those included. They're saying that basically if parents and the kids needed to know, public health would have contacted them directly, but for privacy reasons, they won't share which 5 centers those are.
When we feel that there is a need from a public health and safety point of view, we have certainly released information that talked about location. When we talk about situations where, there may be one case or two cases in a school, for example, you could run the risk of someone being able to be identified, especially if that school is still in session and, the children or staff may be out. People may be able to put two and two together, and that causes those people to be able to be recognized or identified.
Now, it is worth mentioning that other provinces have been proactively putting this information online, including the case numbers. So, for example, in Ontario, you can go online at any time and check to see whether or not your school or daycare center has been the subject of an outbreak. Other provinces like Alberta are putting a range of cases, so you know maybe there are 0 to 5 cases at your school, or there's more than 10, in order to address some of those privacy concerns, Carolyn.
Thanks so much, Peter. And tomorrow's Friday, so that means there's going to be another briefing. I'm sure you'll be on that call. What are you expecting tomorrow?
We're expecting a couple of things. So obviously the vaccine plan, figuring out things like we're getting some AstraZeneca doses. They're not supposed to be for seniors. So who are we going to give those about 7,000 shots that we have arriving? And before they lift the alert level in the St. John's area, they want to do more testing. So we're expecting to see more details on a testing plan, which could include things like Nova Scotia has done with asymptomatic testing to try and make sure that there aren't more cases that aren't showing up in those daily numbers that we're seeing every day. That's the big concern from health officials.
All right, Peter, thanks so much for this.
Anytime.
Tommy, listen to this.
Oh, this is country music.
I first got interested in synthesizers probably when I was in junior high school, from what I remember.
I don't know if I would have released this album if it weren't for the pandemic.
I literally got just so involved with the guitar itself.
Well, we usually announce birthdays on Fridays, but there is a special birthday story we'd like to share tonight. No doubt the pandemic has brought its share of challenges, especially when it comes to marking monumental occasions.
Last Friday, Pearl Crew celebrated her 100th birthday at Pleasant View Manor, her long-term care home in Lewisport.
And while family and friends couldn't be there in person, they found another way to connect and make the most of a very special day. Here and now, Zach Gowdy brings us that story.
Happy big birthday from all of us. Oh my. All of the residents' names.
Well, that's something you do tomorrow.
Yes, lots of reading to do.
Do you think that you would have made it this far to see your 100th birthday?
But you're there standing in my hands also. I haven't got nothing to do with it. I just got to go from day to day.
Today we are going to be having a birthday party for one of our residents. She is turning 100 years old, and this is her special day, and it doesn't stop just because of COVID. We are going to be throwing a virtual party for her this year. And it's sad that, family and friends can't physically be here, but they're a part of her special day as well.
We had planned, my wife and I, to go out and spend a day with her and take part in the celebration this afternoon. And I totally understand the restrictions and the need for the restrictions, but mixed emotions, I'm sure she would have been glad to see us. We would have been glad to see her, of course. Well, she was born 1921 in Camilton, just out by Lewisport there. I've heard her tell many interesting stories, survival stories that comes from the Depression era, and I've never forgotten her stoical attitude. She has an attitude of being determined to make it through in spite of overwhelming odds, and basically that's been her approach through life.
My mother died when I was 15, and then there's no one to stay home by myself. A girl 15 years old, 4 more to feed. We had to survive on whatever we could, but I did.
Jim, do you think that attitude and those experiences are helping her now to get through this very strange and difficult time?
Very much, very much. You don't forget those things.
Pearl, how's the party going?
You can't tell everything you see in here.
What's the secret to living a good life after 100 years?
I'll let you know next year. It's lovely, isn't it? I wish you could be here.
I wish I could too. Can I come next year? Am I invited to the 101st?
Right on. Yeah, it's really great. And I'm glad I'm here.
Distance has no effect on relationships. Your concern for your relatives, your love for them is not diminished by distance. So what you have to do is think back. Think back to the good times. Think about the hurdles, the tough times, the obstacles, and how you got through them and how they strengthen you and how they strengthen your parents. COVID is an awful thing, but put it in perspective and play by the rules, and we'll get through this. And we can celebrate that. That's another piece in the memory bank down the road.
How nice. What a lovely tribute.
Congratulations to Pearl, and happy belated birthday from all of us at Here and Now.
I hope Pearl is watching right now, and also want to say thanks to Zach for that lovely item. Ashley is back with a look at the long range. And Ashley, tomorrow is Friday, so I'm already thinking about the weekend. How's the weather looking?
Yeah, so am I, and that's because it's finally going to quiet down for a few days, which is good news. Let's take a look at the future tracker just to time that out. We're looking at the potential for some flurries, but also plenty of sunshine through the day on Saturday. It looks like as this area of low pressure that has been affecting us finally starts to ease off, or starts to weaken rather, and move off into Sunday, it looks like. So just the chance of some onshore flurries again along the west coast and parts of Labrador as well, but overall, it will be fairly quiet even as we head into Sunday. Plenty of more sunshine in play. Still above zero, it looks like, for the Avalon, about 2 degrees for St. John, 0 for Marystown, and then a little bit cooler, 1 or 2 or 3 degrees cooler as you head towards the west coast. Staying cloudy, it looks like, for you, but same thing along the strait as well. But these below, or rather above seasonable temperatures will continue for Labrador. -4 for Nain and -7 for Lab City. But again, your flurries will continue with gray skies. Into Sunday, not much of a change in the forecast for most of Labrador, although temperatures will be a little bit cooler. And then a few degrees cooler for the island as well, with sunshine again for both central and eastern areas of the island, just near or just below zero. And then the chance of flurries sticking around, and then those temperatures into the minus single digits for the west coast. Now after that, Monday looks great. Tuesday, some sunshine as well, but looking ahead really over the next week or so, I don't see anything significant as far as snow goes, just that chance of some scattered flurries pretty much through the beginning of next week. Same forecast essentially for central Newfoundland, although we are looking at a little bit more sunshine. Temperatures will be hovering in and around the 0 degree mark, or a degree or 2 below into Tuesday. And then for western Newfoundland, unfortunately more gray skies, but also the chance of flurries. May even see a few peaks of sun, but overall it will be unsettled with that onshore flow continuing and temperatures into the minus single digits. For eastern Labrador, more sunshine and temperatures in the -3 to 5 degree range as you head into the beginning of next week. Tuesday looks lovely, -5, but your overnight lows dipping into the minus teens. And then for Lab West, through Sunday, gray, finally going to see some sunshine on Monday, and then a few flurries will return for Tuesday. I wanted to share this photo. Look at this great shot from the river flowing from Ronconter Lake. Andrew shared that shot with us, and if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beautiful shot.
Thanks so much, Ashley.
Yes, and tomorrow is Friday, so we have 1 week to go before we find out about the status of the alert level, and of course still lots of questions about the vaccine rollout. And now that they've changed the doses, are they going to be changing the priority groups?
Yeah, so we heard Dr. Fitzgerald say on Wednesday, no, the list that they have about who gets it first and second and third and fourth, that's not going to change. What will change is how quickly they get through that list now that they're using all of their doses to give first shots rather than holding back a bunch of doses to give second shots. So, yep, where you sit on the list isn't going to change, but we saw good news. John Hagee there hinting that it looks like it'll be the summer by the time everyone is vaccinated with at least their first dose instead of the fall. We saw something similar out of Nova Scotia today with the Premier there saying it's going to be the end of June, beginning of July by the time everyone gets their first shot. So hopefully that leads to an Atlantic bubble and a little better summer. We'll have to see.
Great. Thanks so much, Peter, and thanks everyone for watching.
Have a great night.